On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, an impressive OKC win gives them a commanding 2-0 series lead. Jalen Williams makes a leap and SGA dominates.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're diving into the Oklahoma City Thunder pulling off an impressive win in game number 2 to command a 2-0 series lead over the Minnesota Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals, cutting the wins that they need in half to make it back to the NBA Finals. They need to win 2 more games of the next 5. So let's see if OKC can pull that off. But when you look at this game, it was the Thunder just being an absolute wagon, an absolute juggernaut, and taking over the contest. It was really impressive, but it should be normalized by now. But just because it's what the Thunder typically do, it's like growing a 20-point lead on this stage is not normal. 24 points was the largest lead of the night for OKC in a game that saw 7 lead changes, 2 ties. The Thunder, kind of blew it open at the end of the third quarter and the start of the fourth quarter, clearly. But then Minnesota rallied in the middle of the fourth quarter to make things tight, and the Thunder gained control yet again. This was a situation where Minnesota, in the first game of this series, of course, losing it, but you still felt like, okay, you can still do your job here in game number 2 and get a split, head back home and feel good about yourself. And instead, like in the third quarter, this Minnesota team was outright dejected. They were outright deflated. Their body language was terrible. And if they just didn't let go of the rope completely in that third quarter, you point to that fourth quarter run and say what could have been if you just didn't let down in that third frame. Because Minnesota, really, for as great as Oklahoma City was playing, like they competed hard for 40 minutes of this game, but those 8 minutes in the third quarter really crushed them. And, you look back on that, if you're Minnesota, as a missed opportunity, because we don't know what would have happened had you not gotten yourself in that big of a hole. But you got yourself in that big of a hole because of the suffocating defense of Oklahoma City. We're going to talk about the Thunder's big 3, which I think showed up in a big way. I think that, it's a small sample size. They've only played in, 5 postseason rounds together so far, but this was the most cohesive, meaningful game that the big 3 have ever played together with SGA, J-Dub, and Chet. It's all starting on the defensive end. I mean, to hold Minnesota to 28% from 3 again, because you're spoon-feeding them shots that you want to live with, and you don't allow them to get consistent enough offense. I'm very interested to see what the second spectrum numbers say about Minnesota's open 3-point shots. But from the eye test, it looked like in the first half, Minnesota was able to do a concerted effort of running flare screens, getting guys curling off screens into the corner, getting comfortable shots. But that was not a consistent approach for that Timberwolves offense. A lot of these shots were quote unquote open, but they were in scenarios that they're uncomfortable with, and that led to a lot of misses from beyond the arc. And both teams lost in the sense of the 3-point battle. Both teams, neither one of them shot well. 28% from Minnesota, 27% from OKC. But the difference was the command in the paint from the Thunder. And Minnesota got that, they got that column tighter. And that's what's so deflating for the Timberwolves, is that their defense just was not there. And the Thunder made them pay. You cannot employ Rudy Gobert and get torn up like this at the rim and relinquish the spots in the mid-range that the Thunder love to get to and get outscored in the paint, etc. With both teams shooting bad from 3, you would hope that you'd have the better rim deterrent to shut that off as well, or at least slow it down to the extent that you did not. The Thunder shot 27% from 3 tonight, and they made 50% of their shot attempts. They made 50% of their attempts from the floor. That's just wildly impressive, as is their defense, which, if you're Minnesota, what's so discouraging is, both teams shot bad from 3. You only had 14 turnovers, which, yes, you don't want double-digit turnovers, but comparatively speaking to what the Thunder defense is able to do, 14 is a number that you take, especially compared to the Thunder 6. You lost the rebounding battle by 1. And yet this was a game that felt in hand for the final, quarter and a half for Oklahoma City. And so it's like, what's the recourse from here? Well, the recourse is simply throwing your hands up and saying, well, if you hit your open threes, you'll be able to find success. But, Anthony Edwards went 1 for 9. You would expect that to be better. Mike Conley was 1 for 4. And then you had the 0 for 5 from Naz Reid. And you hope that all those things would turn around and thus change the game. But how many times is that going to happen in what's left of this series? Can you now rattle off 4 wins from just that method before the Thunder can get 2? It's insanely unlikely right now, but a lot of this can be boiled down to the frustration that the Thunder place on teams because of their ability to have these avalanche-like runs with their defense, with again, dejecting you by the way that they can turn you over, force you into bad shots, bat around rebounds to where even if you're the bigger team and the stronger team and the more imposing team down low, the way that these little guards and forwards from the Thunder race in there and bat the ball out of your hands is dejecting from what should have been, a better situation, should have been a second chance opportunity for your club. Instead, it's a fast break opportunity for Oklahoma City, and it's a transitional opportunity for Oklahoma City, which again, the Thunder dominate in the fast break, and the Thunder actually win second chance points, and they win points in the paint, and they shoot at a better percentage, and they turn the ball over less, and they out-rebound you more. They out-rebound you by more, and the Thunder get a 118 to 103 win. They did everything right, and the Thunder also had their top 3 guys show up, and Minnesota did not. Minnesota had Anthony Edwards, who I thought played even better than his stat sheet would say, but Julius Randle, was nothing in this game. I thought that Jaden McDaniels was really good in this game, but he, that's not enough, right? That's not your guy, the way that Julius Randle is your guy, to where if you got more from Randle, you'd feel good. On the flip side, Oklahoma City, they got everything that they needed and then some from Chet and from J-Dub, and Shai was the MVP of this league. Shai was a total dominating force in this game. So let's talk about those big 3 members for the Thunder. Let's talk about the role players that stepped up and how the Thunder got this 2-0 lead. But first, I want to say right now, my good friends over at FanDuel, go check out FanDuel today because FanDuel is incredible. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night they're delivering highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, can't miss moments, whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player. It's never a better time than now to get in on the action with FanDuel. It makes it easier to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. So pick 1 to 2 players, you can combine them in the same game parlay, you can make live bets, you can take over-unders and player props and spreads all at FanDuel, and you could win $200 in bonus bets to add to the excitement if your first $5 bet hits. If you're new to FanDuel, the perfect time to sign up is right now by heading to FanDuel.com, placing your $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I thought that the biggest story from tonight's game was Jalen Williams. We're back on Locked On Thunder, your teams every single day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Jalen Williams made a substantial leap. We played the clip from Matt Moore of Locked On NBA on yesterday's show, where Matt Moore had the prediction that J-Dub would win Western Conference Finals MVP. And we talked about how it felt like you're getting to a point where the dam is going to break open for J-Dub, because this has been a postseason that's been wildly more successful, wildly more advanced and mature than what his first postseason was. You've seen the signs everywhere. There's a sign of J-Dub being that number 2 option that you need from him. The production has not been there consistently, but the process has. And when you give an all-star talent, like J-Dub, the opportunity at the spots he's comfortable with the shot selection that he likes, with the right playmaking around him, then eventually he's going to have games like this one where it was just huge. And it was huge from the word go. J-Dub's gotten so comfortable where he's bringing the ball up the left side of the court, crossing the lane to the right side of the elbow, and knocking down a mid-range pull-up. And that's the exact shot you want from J-Dub. That's the exact shot you want to put Minnesota's defense in a bind. He also had a skip pass from Chet into a Dirk fadeaway right off the get-go. And, after a weird fall that kind of shook up his leg / ankle, but he stayed in the game and he was perfectly fine after that. He had a sidestep in the mid-range. Like, these are just shots that you love to see J-Dub get to. This half spin at the nail in the mid-post area, right below the nail. It was a beautiful on-ball rep with Shai on the bench to really help this secondary unit. And he had the one dribble kick out at the nail to AC in the slot for three. Like, that quick decision making is what I think forced Minnesota to go away from the zone defense, which they went to briefly. The Thunder briefly had a laborsome effort with it, and then J-Dub starts making these plays like the one dribble kicks that forced Minnesota out of it. And that's what we've always talked about, is what OKC did from that play forward, of flashing AC in the middle, getting AC a mid-range jumper off of the dime, J-Dub making quick decisions on the basketball. All these little things of playing in the middle really helped flow Oklahoma City's offense with that zone defense from Minnesota, and it really stemmed from J-Dub, who continued to make timely buckets in the second half. That three in the third quarter to kind of fend off a Minnesota run at the start of the third was massive. He forces his way to the rim on the next possession, where he's using his shoulder to bump guys off their spots and understanding his strength for a personal 5-0 run. That's where I think that the leap is coming in. What did we talk about just last series? It was game 6 where everybody was down on J-Dub, and I was saying that I thought that the places that he got on the court were the exact right places. The shot attempts that he was taking were the exact right shots. What wasn't right was he was not explosive enough. He was not physical enough. He didn't play with enough force. And tonight he did that. Tonight he understood how to use his body, which is an NBA body, which is a great frame, he has positional strength. He should be able to get to the rim at will with his athletic traits. He should be someone who's dominating in the mid-range and at the rim, which he does in the regular season, and he's doing it now in the postseason, and he's continually gotten better at approaching the sport this way and approaching offense this way with more force. The second half of game 7, the second half of game 1, and now the entire game of game 2. It's where you get that feeling that the dam is starting to break for J-Dub. Of all this great processing was hitting a wall of no production, and now the production's flowing through, because that personal 5-0 run in the third quarter sent OKC back up by 9. He had a great blend of body control and strength, and he was taking himself and this Thunder team to the next level. It parlays into Chet making a big play to give OKC a 14-2 run and OKC an 82-65 lead. And that's when, at that timeout, Minnesota is dejected. They're spending the entire timeout talking to the officials. There's a video of it on Twitter that you can go see. Like, they are just deflated at that moment. And that parlayed itself into the rest of the third quarter and the start of the fourth quarter. And that debilitating response from your opponent, especially in games of this magnitude, is what helps you get this win. Because, like we said, if Minnesota just doesn't roll over in the middle, in the latter stages of the third quarter, then that run in the fourth quarter is not just enough to get them back in the ball game. It could be enough to get them a win, which could be enough to get the series 1-1, which could be enough to change the entire outlook of how this series will unfold. But because you were able to do it in such deflating fashion in that third quarter, it really did spark you onto a win. Because again, we get wrapped up in what happens in the last 2 minutes. All these things carry over. The points you score in the third quarter are as valuable as they are in the fourth quarter. And what you do in that third quarter is as valuable as what you do in the fourth quarter, because it's a totality and a scoreboard at the end of the day. And so that Avalanche run, of course, had the Paycom Center rocking, but it was largely stemmed by J-Dub, who then showed off that playmaking and has this elite bounce pass to Isaiah Hartenstein off the baseline out of bounds play to keep that momentum up at the start of the fourth quarter. And then what happened? Then you saw the Thunder face resistance. Then you saw the Thunder face that run from Minnesota to cut it down to a 10-9 point lead somewhere in there. And who stepped up with the pressure on, with the feeling of like, oh my goodness, like they might blow this game, with the nervousness in the crowd, with, these guys are basketball junkies on both sides, right? The Minnesota sideline, the Thunder sideline. You can't be in the NBA and not love this sport, especially making it to this level. They know that throughout this season's NBA playoffs, there's been wild comebacks. There's been wild swings. There's been massive shifts, right? They know that. So if you're Minnesota and you're making that comeback trail, you got to feel pretty good about where you're at, and you got to feel like you can really do this and start chipping away. And if you're the Thunder, you got to feel pretty tight, because you don't want to be the next in line of what we're talking about with the mayhem that's been this postseason. And with all that pressure, J-Dub hits that slot three to put the game back up to 10 points for OKC. And then Chet Holmgren just absolutely works over Naz Reid for a bucket to really put the exclamation point on this game. But I thought that Chet Holmgren and J-Dub were two massive stories, because this is what you've come to expect for SGA. And Chet Holmgren tonight, we'll say J-Dub's stat line to kind of put a bow on that: 26 points, 10 boards, 5 assists, and a steal. He was 2 for 6 from three, but 60% from the floor. Like, think of how crazy that is to be able to go 2 for 6 from three, but still shoot 60% from the floor. J-Dub was just phenomenal at plus 17 in this game. Chet Holmgren, though, I thought had an incredible energy. I thought he had incredible activity and incredible aggressiveness in game two, and he made it happen on both ends. Like, this is what should have happened for Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert in this game, I thought played entirely too soft on both ends. I thought that, at the rim, he could have done a better job contesting these Thunder drivers, especially in the non-Shai minutes, and especially, deterring them at the rim. Because if you would have shut off the rim at any point, right, if you just had a single stretch of great rim pressure, if you're the Minnesota defense with the Thunder shooting the way that they've shot from three, you would have been you would have been in the driver's seat of this game. But he couldn't do that. And then offensively, there's too many plays where he has the opportunity that if he played with more force, he could have just slammed it home. He goes for the layup and misses, right? Like, there's all these different edges and margins. And I thought that Chet won that margin of, when he was on the court as a lone center, he had great pressure on the rim on both sides, offensively and defensively. And he doesn't end up with a single block tonight, which I think that sometimes blocks are the only way we look at deterrence at the rim. But just the activity to bounce from block to block and make drivers kick out. And once you're kicking out to guys who are shaky three-point shooters, and again, funneling shots to guys who you want to shoot the basketball, that's a huge A+ grade in the grade book for Chet Holmgren, because he's helping you get to that uncomfortable place for that Minnesota offense. And that's the name of the game right now defensively in these playoffs. Like, all these teams are super talented in the Final Four. How can you make them uncomfortable and thus make them lose production? And Chet Holmgren did that defensively, even though he hasn't come up with a single steal or block. Now, offensively, 1 for 6 from three. You can say this about every single player on the Thunder roster today. They all would have liked to shoot the three ball better today. But I thought that the selection of the threes were good. I thought that Chet's balance of, he didn't shy away from shooting threes. He still shot 6 of them. So he didn't just tunnel vision his way to the rim, but he also didn't settle for them and fall in love with them. He still played off the catch very well, which set up both his hockey assists and his 2 actual assists, but also set up opportunities at the rim to finish, where he was a lot stronger and heading there a lot stronger, either to get the actual basket or to get fouled, where he was 5 for 6 at the free throw line. 6 free throw attempts is nothing to sneeze at in this league, especially for the positions that Chet's put in, where of his 17 shots, 6 of them are threes. You couple in there that he's a center, and it's harder, of course, to get fouls at that position most of the times. Like, the 6 free throw attempts illustrates how forceful he was playing off the catch. And, he had the technical foul, staring down Dante DiVincenzo and screaming into the ether, which was an energy-giving play and another contributing factor to the frustration and demoralization of these Minnesota Timberwolves. And when you look at how the Thunder have started to use him through the end of that Denver series and now in this Minnesota series, they're moving him around off the ball more, and the Thunder playmakers are doing a much better job of driving into the lane and not being predetermined with that drive, driving into that lane and finding Chet on the backside of that defense. Once you get to the nail, once you get to the elbow and below, then making your dump off passes and thus feeding Chet where he can get some easy slams at the rim. And again, the beautiful footwork on that last bucket against Naz Reid was just sensational from Chet, and shows you that he can dunk in traffic, he can finish lobs, he can have the fancy footwork in the painted area, he can knock down threes, although tonight was not a good 3-point shooting game from Chet. He can play off the catch, he can move off the ball, and he can do all that he does defensively. So I thought that was great from Chet Holmgren. Coming up, let's talk about SGA and his dominating performance. Let's talk about the Thunder and their game 2 win. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Folks, SGA, I mean, he took over this game completely. And, he really had a great command of this game because he not only had a couple, beautiful buckets to start out with after getting handed his MVP hardware, but what really stuck out early was his ability to create good opportunities on the drive and kick, open up the floor for himself and others. And if the shooters could have knocked them down, of course, it would have been more effective, but he was putting them in great spots to succeed. And, I don't know when this mindset shifts, right? And I'm talking now mindset of those of us talking about the Thunder, but you still have to kind of believe that they won't shoot this bad forever. Now they've been shooting bad for about a month now, consistently, but eventually, hopefully these guys will be able to overcome whatever postseason shooting struggles that they're having, by and large. Of course, it's not a blanket thing where they've shot the ball bad in every game, but more often than not, they've missed some open opportunities. But Shai continuing to find those opportunities, you have to believe, will eventually more consistently pay off for Oklahoma City. And I thought they did a good job facilitating this game and picking his spots both to just hammer away at the rim and to try to dance around and have that mid-range work for him, where he ends up with 38 points on 57% shooting, 1 for 2 from 3, 13 for 15 from the free throw line, 3 rebounds, 8 assists, and 3 steals. Shai did some things off the dribble today that I don't know if you can call it a heat check, because we typically think of heat checks as shot attempts, but man, it certainly felt like he was feeling the moment. It felt like he was feeling the fact that they were getting up 20. He was feeling the fact that he was the MVP. He was feeling the fact that he was having a great game, because some of the dribble moves that he tried and the combinations that he tried to slither his way through the lane and to his spots on the baseline for that baseline jumper, where it's just stuff you never see Shai trying. It's stuff that you never see Shai being as exploratory of in his normal everyday game. He was really trying some things that worked out for him, and some of them, of course, did not. But still, while we're saying that, he only had 1 turnover, and he was really getting experimentatious with his dribble moves. But ultimately, what this came down to for Shai was different verse, same as the first, the ultimate test of consistency, because he didn't do anything extraordinarily special today outside of the stat line. The stat line is extraordinarily special. The stat line is excellent. But it's what you come to expect, an efficient 38-point game. How crazy is that in the Western Conference Finals, in the playoffs, when points are at a premium and you're playing against a very physical defense and a very good defense, you still just have an efficient 38 points. And nobody's shocked. Nobody's fawning all over themselves. Nobody's racing to a microphone to preach the gospel of SGA. Quite the opposite. It's kind of like a ho-hum game. It's the third segment on Locked On Thunder. Appreciate what you're watching. Appreciate the fact that this game can go under the radar like this. And I thought that Shai did a much better job of hunting his kill shots, if that makes sense. Because I'll be the first to admit, we were crucifying the decision making in Game 3, which I thought was particularly porous, and a rare game where he had a poor decision making. 48 minutes in Game 3 against Denver. Tonight, he still went for the kill shots, but it wasn't just because they went in, right? That 3 went in, and that felt like a 3 where it's okay, he was trying to send the message, so to say, with that 3, a heat check, however you want to say it or convey it. He was trying to go for the kill shot, but that was a situation where it made sense to do so because you were able to get to it cleanly. You didn't take up the entire shot clock and then just throw something up. And the way your defense was playing at that time, you felt good that you could keep that momentum even if you could not get the bucket, or even if you could not get the rebound for a second chance look. And again, the most important part would be that it was a clean opportunity. So he did a great job of that, and I thought he did a great job of once you're already feeling it and in that rhythm, and you're the MVP and you're up 20, etc. It's hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube. You just want to shoot everything because you're red hot. But he did a good job of continuing to just take what the defense gave him. So I thought that was great by SGA, along with the plus 25 and the command and control of this game. When Shai was in the game, it felt like everybody knew The Timberwolves knew, the Thunder knew, the crowd knew, the media knew, everybody knew when Shai was in the game, it was on cruise control for Oklahoma City. And that's the kind of presence that Shai brings to this roster. Other than that, Caruso was great. Hey, guess what, guys? He fouled out. He fouled out, guys. Oh, so they do call fouls on Alex Caruso. They do call fouls, huh? Oh, the Thunder got called for two more fouls than Minnesota did today, huh? The Timberwolves shot 26 free throws and the Thunder shot 24, huh? The whistle was in the Timberwolves' favor. Oh, they lost 118 to 103. Oh, what? I thought that you promised me that if Caruso fouled out, and they called every foul on Caruso, and that the Timberwolves got free throws, and if the fouls were against OKC, you promised me that the Timberwolves would win. You promised me. You promised me that they'd be competitive. They weren't even competitive. Do you see how dumb it is? Do you see how silly it is? The Thunder are a great team. The Thunder have proven to be a great team. They've won 68 games. They've been the best team all season. They've been the best defense all season. They get called for fouls. They don't get a ton of free throws besides one guy. And that one guy has been called locally and nationally a sell job artist, right? We can go too far on that. We dove into Shai's free throw stuff on last pod, so you can go refer to that because we're running out of time here in the Woody Guthrie room. So go back to last pod for the free throw stuff. But it's just interesting that like the exact formula Minnesota wanted played out. And it wasn't enough to even be close. Nonetheless, though, I thought that Caruso, despite his foul trouble, he got in that foul trouble by setting a tone defensively. He had 2 steals. He had a couple assists. He had a couple rebounds. He knocked down a 3. And overall was just a good play finisher for the Thunder. 4 for 7 in this game was great. So I thought that was awesome. I thought that Lou Dort played amazing defense as he gets his first all-defensive team selection on Anthony Edwards. Offense left some to be desired. The worst thing you can say about Lou Dort's night was the step back mid-range fadeaway at the shot clock. I don't think I've ever seen that before from Lou Dort, but it is what it is. Hartenstein, a very underrated game from him. 6 points, 8 rebounds, but it's the I'll do the shtick of like, this was the best 6-point, 8 rebound game 2 of the Western Conference Finals you're ever going to see. So I'll do that shtick. That was a good game from Hartenstein. I thought that, of course, Chet being in the lone center, as I predicted before the series, was the better option. But I thought that Hartenstein still played his role particularly well in this game. But that's kind of it. They really shrunk things back. This felt like a game that, of course, the Thunder wanted. It felt like a game where the Thunder prioritized who they thought that would give them the best chance to win, if that makes sense, because they're always trying to do that. But you'll know what I'm saying when I'm conveying this. The Thunder didn't go deep into their rotation truly, especially for a game where they got up by 24 points. I mean, they got up by 24 points in this game, and the only players that played double digits, in minutes was Caruso and Kaysen. Isaiah Joe had 3. Wiggins had 9 minutes and 56 seconds, so we can count Wiggins too. And then Kinrich had 1. It's like that was your rotation, was the 5 starters, and then you had Wallace and Caruso and Wiggins. I think that's pretty fair. That's pretty fair for what your rotation should be for this team. It's just interesting that like you didn't see the Thunder go a little bit deeper, especially again once the game got to a place where you could, especially with the foul trouble. Like they trusted Caruso with that foul trouble. They knew that could lead to him getting fouled out, but they stuck with him. He did get fouled out, and it ended up not mattering. So I thought that was just a very interesting way to handle the rotation for Mark. I thought that Mark, during that run at the end of the first half, he did a great job playing offense, defense, getting Kaysen in there, for Hartenstein, or Joe in there for Hartenstein, then getting Kaysen in there at the Shai free throws for the defense, because you didn't need a big body in there to play offense defense. You needed, a more athletic guy to prevent a heave from Minnesota, and he did just that. I thought that Mark had a good game. I thought that the Thunder had a good game. I thought that Minnesota has a lot left on the table to be desired. I think that Minnesota will come out with a much better approach, and they have to. This game, I got into trouble on Twitter, so I'm going to be very careful with my words. The Minnesota Timberwolves tonight on May 22nd in the year of our Lord 2025 displayed the qualities that of a team that is soft. Is that better? They displayed the qualities of a team that is soft tonight. Letting go of the rope in the third quarter can't happen. Not on this setting, not on this stage, especially when you're capable of what you did in the fourth quarter to tighten this game. I cannot stress that point enough. Rudy Gobert minutes, like he's got to be better, or he's got to not play. right? Because he didn't even give you he didn't give you a single thing you needed. He didn't give you physicality. He didn't help you in the paint defensively. He didn't help you offensively at the rim, getting rebounds and second chance points. Like, he did nothing, and that just cannot happen. The frustration foul from Jaden McDaniels, that's just soft. I mean, listen, is Shai hooking you? Is Shai flopping and selling calls? He absolutely is. But that was a play where he got beat. Shai beat him flat out to the spot, and you can't just give that foul away. And Jaden McDaniels said after the game, he wasn't mad. He just wanted to foul. And so it's like, okay, well, if you take that, how do you analyze that? Either Jaden McDaniels is telling the truth and he wasn't mad and he just picked then to foul because he had the foul to give. To me, that's just silly. I mean, that's just not a good thought process by a basketball player. If you acknowledge that this player that you're guarding is going to force you to foul 6 times and foul you out of the game, why would, on the rare time that you feel like you got beat and didn't have to foul, would you give away a foul? Whenever, if you wanted to send a message in any type of way and you wanted to let out your frustration, which, by the way, you said you weren't mad, so it was not a frustration foul. If you wanted to do that, why wouldn't you do that closer to the rim? Why wouldn't you do that in a scenario where the refs actually call the foul? Why wouldn't you do that in a scenario where you were going to just kind of get your money's worth? A little bit like a manager arguing with an umpire in baseball. Like, you're going to get thrown out. You might as well just go all out. Or if Shai hooks your arm on the low block, yeah, do whatever you want to do to send a message there if you're Jaden McDaniels. But when Shai beats you by 3 steps to the elbow, don't then push him in the back. I mean, that's not getting your money's worth, number one. And it's just taking away a foul that you have at your disposal for a team that, again, was able to make a run and could have ended up, that could have been costly, of course. The flagrant one upgraded 2 for Jaden McDaniels on that play. It's like, that play was soft. The third quarter was soft. The effort level was soft. The aggression was soft. The intensity was soft. Caveat, asterisk, qualities of a team that would be soft, right? From this Timberwolves team. And I thought that with your outlook of, hey, everything's still in front of you, you just have to win one on the road, and you got to be able to go back home 1-1, that you would have been the more desperate team tonight if you're Minnesota, and they weren't. They weren't the more desperate, aggressive, physical, just intense team tonight. Now, with that being said, Minnesota's literally been here before, like, not only to the Western Conference Finals, but they've literally been down 0-2 and came back to be able to take the series. So, like, that's a situation where I would fully expect Minnesota to, in Game 3, deliver their best punch. I think that the comfortability factor was huge at home for a multitude of reasons, especially in this series. Obviously, the Thunder are letting up open threes. Role players play better at home. Hopefully for Minnesota, they shoot the ball better. I think that it's much easier to communicate defensively at home. I think that you're in better control of your surroundings at home defensively, and that is a massive boost to a team that needs to just generate stops and thus turnovers. And then conversely, I think that it's easier to get organized offensively at home, where it's easier to try to eliminate some turnovers, which you did a good job of. Like, Minnesota having 14 turnovers, I'm not being patriotistic. Like, 14 turnovers against this Thunder defense is actually a pretty good mark. If you can whittle that down even a little bit in Game 3, you feel really positive about what you've done if you're the Timberwolves. So, like, there's some reasons to believe that this team at home will be able to at least win 1. I think that win 2. So, like, I still believe that this will be a long series. I still believe that, I picked Thunder in 7 before the series began. Obviously, like, I don't feel great about that prediction because it's 2-0 already, but I still think that this will be a long series. I still think that this will be a 6 or 7 gamer. But Minnesota tonight specifically rolled over and did not play to their standard. But I still believe in their defense. I still believe that they can have a couple hot shooting nights. I still believe they can push this thing out. But it's really going to rest on Game 3 because you cannot go down 0-3. We'll talk about that. We're here at the Woody Guthrie room, so we'll be somewhere in the Target Center, for the next game recap. But until then, be good and be good to one another.